Welcome, party people, to Tales from the Field. In sales, we all screw up. And it's in those moments that we screw up where we learn the most. And I'm committed to figuring out what that looks like to make it helpful and have some fun along the way. I have the most incredible Ashley Coghill, my fellow sales aficionado, and I am delighted that you succumbed into my peer pressure to be on the podcast. So Ashley, for those of you or those that are listening that don't know you, give us a little intro.
Currently an account executive at Lessonly. My background's a little bit funky. I come from the world of roller derby, so I have some interesting tales that we could explain and explore on a different podcast. But let's talk about some failures.
So if you can tear some things up on skates, I feel like you were made for sales. Sometimes we're skating along and it's really smooth and the wind's in our hair. And then all of a sudden we hit a little bump in the sidewalk and we take a little tumble. So when you think back, what's one of the things that you look back on and you're like, oh, yeah, that didn't go very well. And we're going to dig into that.
Yeah, I have a lot of failures, and most of the ones that have stuck with me are failures internally. I feel like I'm a very strong personality. I'm used to, going on the track and knocking some people out. So that's part of me. I can be abrupt. So I have had to learn through a lot of failures how to speak to people and not barrel them over. So the specific instance that comes to mind that was a really bad failure on my part, it started at an all team get together meeting, and we were talking about where the company was going and the sales team. And at this point, I was one of two people on a sales team with one manager, and I did not get along very well with my manager. And I got sassy, and I was rude, and I said some things that I shouldn't have said. I was also pregnant and extra emotional. So I spent some time blaming other people for this, which was really dumb. But I ended up getting written up by HR for how I acted and my attitude. And that was really scary, especially because I was pregnant, right? Like, this was my first pregnancy. I didn't know what was going to happen, had a lot of fear. And I was a jerk to my manager, and that wasn't okay, regardless of the situation. So that's one of my biggest failures. And as salespeople, we are taught to be really strong on calls, and you have to, run that meeting. And empathy is important too, but you can't just let a prospect walk all over you. But you can't take that to your manager and treat them the same way. So that was a big problem that I caused.
So when you were in that moment and you reacted, right? So there's a lot of things that are going on in that situation. You're not jiving with the person. And sadly, sometimes we don't jive with our leaders. And that's a really tricky balance to try to strike. So you're not jiving, you hit the skids on a particular situation, and I'm sure you're feeling a lot of things. And it sounds like in that moment, those feelings jumped straight up into the driver's seat and led the conversation. So in the moment, did you know that you were maybe crossing a line? Did you know that your emotions were taking over? Like, at what point did you realize this isn't good? I'm not okay with this. This was a misstep.
So in the moment, I felt vindicated. It felt good to be sassy in that moment because I had a lot of frustration about a lot of things. But it didn't feel good when I realized what I had done. And that's something that I've had to learn to tone back. And part of that is just, I'm really careful about who I work for now. I want to make sure that I don't get put in a situation where it feels really good to be a jerk to that person, but also learning how to talk to humans is really important. So it wasn't until a couple days later when I found out that I was getting written up, that I had really messed up, that my manager had taken this to other people and said, this is a problem. That was scary. That's like the the feeling in the pit of your chest, like, oh my gosh, I really messed up. I'm trying not to curse, Amy. And
it's hard for me too. It's okay. We're in it together.
Gee golly. So
yes.
so I also found out later that I was supposed to get an award that day, and I ended up not getting that award for being a top performer because of I made him so mad that he pivoted and ended up giving an award to somebody else at this big, like, I was supposed to get recognition. We like recognition. So like the pain from this lasted for a while, knowing that I got in big trouble, also knowing in hindsight that I was wrong, and then knowing that I didn't get the like kudos that you strive for because I had crushed it and I didn't get that little piece of paper that said like always winning, right? So there were a lot of pieces to that hurt.
Yeah.
Not immediately, but yes.
Well, and here's one lesson that I'm hearing. Our actions, they have reactions, good or bad. And something that I've talked about a lot, and I've had to learn this lesson on more than one occasion. Our emotions, they're very real. How we feel, those are real things. Feelings are not right. They're not wrong. It's what we're feeling in the moment. But, big but, or and, it's what we do with those feelings and emotions that makes or breaks what happens next. And again, it goes back to actions and reactions. So it feels really good in the moment to be like, yeah, I used my voice. Suck it, manager. But then you realize, while that felt really good, it feels, well, let me ask you, did you feel like, wow, that felt really good, and now it feels even worse with what's happening as a result?
Yeah. I ended up crying in the bathroom after that happened. I'll blame some of that on hormones because it was, again, very, very, it was like 10 weeks pregnant. So that's a time.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely not a great feeling after, right? Like, yeah. And then I'm never doing that again. Right. Like that was not worth it. So yes.
So let me ask you, this is happening and you actually get written up about it, which is horrifying. And by the way, this is real, y'all. Like this is, Ashley, you brought the heat, and thank you. It's hard to have this conversation out loud. I want to crawl through the screen and give you a big hug. All of us have wanted to do it. Some of us have done it. Some of us will do it. And this is kind of what it looks like when you do. And so you have the sit down. There's a write up. This manager of yours is talking about it with other people. So it's not just contained. And that is horrifying in and of itself at the same time. How did you respond in that moment? So you're having the sit down. It's time for the write up. What does that look like compared to the instance? Let's call it, I'm air quoting, the instance. Can we call it that? So how does one look from the other? The same or different?
I was still angry at that point. I was very angry that I was getting written up. I felt like there were reasons that I was so angry. So I thought that those, in some way, maybe thought that those reasons justified my anger, which is not true at all. I have control over how I react, right? And I've learned that over time and making mistakes. So I was really angry to get written up. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. Company had a great culture. I thought maybe I was protected because I was pregnant. Like they weren't going to write me up and fire me because why would they do that to a pregnant woman? Well, that's not an excuse to be a jerk. It's not. It's just not. So I had to swallow that anger and not let it show. And then I had a choice to make on how I was going to go from there. So that was another lesson, and not a very pretty scene either, honestly.
So break that down. So your emotions still blazing, anger, probably a lot of other things, probably a little sad because it's like, well, wait, I was just getting this award and now like I'm on the other side of that. And so maybe some disappointment at the same time, so you've got a little cocktail of feelings and none of them are elation or happy feelings. So you have the sit down, you're angry still. What do you end up doing to get better from that?
Sure. So I met with HR separately and I talked to them and I said, like, this is how I'm feeling. I don't know what to do. I'm having a really hard time getting along with this manager. And I'm afraid that the way I was written up about attitude, I'm afraid that there's not really any like tangible way that I can improve this. Like, how do I make this better? And it was a very tense conversation. And ultimately what I decided to do was create basically like a project plan for myself, in a personal improvement plan for my own self, where I wrote down, this is the problem that I have with my manager. This is how I think we should solve it. This is another thing that we're having a big hurdle with. And this is what I want. And they were tangible things. So like, you're telling me things in my one-on-one that I don't feel like you're following through on. My suggestion is we record our one-on-ones. So there's no problem there. And we can always go back and see what was said. And maybe that means you're not going to say those things on the one-on-one, and that's great. Like, maybe this is for both of us. So things like that on a written document that we ended up both signing, I created this thing and it worked. It was a map, and it was a way to prove that I was actually trying, because I cared a lot about this company. I did not want to leave, and I didn't want to have these kind of feelings. And so I had to find something that I could focus on that would be something that I could check off, right? Like, we're doing this thing. And that's how we moved on from that.
And how did your leader respond to that? So you got caught up in anger, you got caught up in frustration, you got caught up in disappointment, and you let her rip. And then you go through the repercussion of that. And then somewhere along the way, you took some accountability of, guess what? Not okay. And the only way to get through this, because I do like working here, because I do enjoy this, because I don't want this to end. And I certainly don't want it to end on a bad note. I've put together an action plan. This is step one when it comes to the road to recovery, how we show up to take accountability and the things that we do to recover from that. Curious, how did your manager respond to that? So you're saying, hey, I've reflected, maybe not a lot of proud moments here for me. And these are the things that I'm going to concentrate on to get better. And these are the things that I need in our interactions. How did they respond? I'm dying to know.
Yeah. I don't know. This particular person didn't show emotion the way that I do. So I don't know how he specifically felt, but he did it. And over time, he did warm up to me. He ended up sending me a really thoughtful gift when my son was born. And so we still communicate to this day. Like, we actually fixed our relationship somehow. And I don't know that the piece of paper that said, we're going to record our one-on-ones is the reason for that. But I think it was his ability to recognize that I was trying, and his ability to forgive me for that. So a lot of it was him helping me, but it was also, I think on both sides, a serious, like, we're going to really try. And that's a happy ending. I know there are stories where managers don't always react that way. So I feel I was pretty lucky that we didn't end up in flames.
I love that. And so how long did you end up working together afterwards?
Probably about another year and a half.
Okay. So all was not lost.
Losing my mind I got lucky that I didn't lose my job that time.
And so that being said, how long did it take you to get back into a normal rhythm, a healthy rhythm, a productive rhythm?
It took a long time. And there were situations that happened after that were challenging. There was a really bad scenario again that wasn't my fault. That was maybe the other party's fault. And it could have catapulted us right back into a bad relationship. And because we had that moment and that clear understanding of how we were going to treat each other, I was able to point to that and say, we've had problems in the past. The thing that you did really hurt my feelings, made me feel uncomfortable, made me feel unsafe at work. I need you to help me get back to where we were. And it was something that we were able to fix again. So yeah.
So now, what do you do to make sure that you don't get into that situation again?
I try really hard not to react to anything, really. I recognize this about myself, that I can be a little fiery. And that's a good thing in some places, but it's not a good thing internally. It is very important to me to maintain a good relationship with the people who are managing me. So looking at them as humans, understanding that maybe we have personalities that aren't necessarily meshing, and trying to understand their side of things before I react is really important. But it's just the classic, like, breathe, don't just react, don't just talk. It's very important for me to build that muscle.
So building that muscle looks like what specifically? Are there some tools? Are there some tricks? Are there some actions that you took to do that?
Sure. So that plan that we had, that action plan, was really helpful because I had to intentionally pay attention to what I was doing with that relationship. My relationship with my husband has been a really good practice because we both have that reactionary kind of, I have to be real careful because there are consequences if I say the wrong thing, and I know I'm saying the wrong thing, and I'm just saying it because it feels good to get that out and say something nasty because they hurt my feelings, right? Like, we're humans. Sometimes that feels good, but it's not. And it is a constant looking out for, like, how should I actually talk to this human being? How are they going to react to what I say to them? Because I can't control their reaction, but I can control what I say that causes that reaction. And I don't know if it's necessarily a check the box kind of thing, like recording my manager on a one-on-one with me, but it is an intentional thing. It is every day. I'm if I know I'm going to be meeting with my manager, if I know I'm going to be talking to my manager, and I have an awesome manager right now, like, this isn't even a problem, but it could be if I'm not careful. So it is just preparing every time. It's like a pre-call prep, Amy. I have to prep. So I know this is who I'm talking to, and this is how they may react to things. And I need to keep that in mind as I go forward and I talk to the other humans.
Well, and I think, look, humans, we make mistakes. We can be messy. We have emotions. We have different things that go on. And sometimes that can take over and it can really get in the way of ourselves. And look, that happened with you. It's happened to me too. You know, I've got emotions. And when you're somebody like me, where you wear your emotions on your sleeve a lot, it is a muscle that you have to train. And one of the things that I learned in my career and in life is those feelings and those emotions, they are signals. And at the root cause of some of the signals, so you might be like, I feel guilty, or I feel frustrated. There are root feelings, you know, and there's only a very small group of core feelings: sadness, anger, happiness. And when you think about them, all these other words or feelings are descriptors of those root feelings. And one of the things that I learned to do was look at that as a signal. So like if somebody is completely irritating me, I try to take a step back and just look at it as a signal and ask myself, why am I feeling this, before I ever respond? And that has helped dramatically. So for anybody that is listening to this, people are messy. We can have conflict with people. But the thing that I really love the most about this, Ashley, is you had conflict. You got your rear end in the hot seat in a major way. And you still got through it. And you still worked together for more than a year later. And it wasn't all doom and gloom. And it was something that you invested in yourself. So looking back, are you glad that you went through that? Did that help you get better?
I'm really glad because it was going to happen eventually. I'm really glad it happened with that particular human in that particular organization where I had the autonomy to be able to fix it, because that's not always the reality. Yeah. We don't always get that kind of grace. And I would have been very disgruntled if I got fired over that, because I had been like really doing well. That would have been a really silly reason to lose a sales job. But I would have deserved it, because you can't have someone doing that. Like, that is not okay. Even if they feel justified, it's not okay to do those things. So learning that lesson in that environment was something that I'm very grateful for, because it was the perfect storm of being able to have the space to learn that lesson in a way that made a big impact on me. And that's not going to happen again.
Well, and let me ask you, did it happen again?
With other managers or with that specific one?
Well, after the fact, did it ever happen again? Other or specific?
I don't think so. I've had moments where I got heated and I was upset, but I didn't just say whatever I wanted to, or I thought about it. I thought about that. I had something happen recently that I was really disappointed. I was disappointed with a decision that was made, and it felt like a betrayal, and it still does. But it wouldn't have been made better if I just cried and whined and moaned and said, "You're a jerk." That wouldn't have made anything better. So the person that I talked to about that particular incident knew that I was upset. I didn't need to say something nasty for them to know that I was upset. And that's okay. And I didn't burn a bridge or create a problem. I didn't have to get written up. People can tell. I'm an emotional person. They know when I'm upset.
Well, and you know what? It's okay to be an emotional person. What's not okay is when you let your emotions take over that then hurt you, because even if you pop off in the moment, that's you coming out, right? And somebody else will have feelings about that, but ultimately it's you. And ultimately we can't control anybody else but ourselves. And the fact that you've been tempted, you've flirted with it, you want to do it, you've tempered that, that's amazing. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. And I am proud of you. So for those listening, this is a dose of real right up in here. And I really appreciate you breaking it down. Before we wrap things up, for anybody that's listening and you're like, hey, this was not good. This sucked. And I want to avoid it. And I want you to avoid it. Are there any takeaways, like 1, 2, 3, or none? It's okay. Up to you. That you hope from all the things that you shared, that you hope that those listening take away from this?
I think the most important thing is to make sure you treat humans with respect, no matter what the situation is. Even if you're angry, even if you're justified in anger, take responsibility for yourself and don't mess it up. Like, I messed it up one time. I got really lucky that I didn't totally derail my career, right? It was a pivotal part of my career. I could have been destitute, right? Maybe not. That's dramatic, but don't forget that you're talking to a human, even if they have a completely different opinion, even if they're saying something you don't want to hear. It's a human. Treat them with respect. Because even if you're the best salesperson in the entire world, it doesn't matter if you really, really mess up your relationship with your manager or teammate, anybody. Those are important things. Organizations that value how you treat your internal people are the organizations you want to work at. So don't be the one that's making that a problem.
Love it. Well, here's the thing. That's exactly what this podcast is all about. It's for salespeople by salespeople, and it's to encourage us all to remember that we are human, that we do make mistakes. It's what we do to pick ourselves back up, to get better. And Ashley, you picked yourself up as hard as it was, and you've gotten better for it. Does that mean that you've changed who you are? No. Does that mean that you still have your emotions? Yes. But how you're parking them is amazing. And so for anybody listening, I really hope that this was helpful, because this is the reality of being a human. This is the reality of doing business with other people, internally and externally. And I love that you leaned into what happens within the walls that we work in, not just with our buyers. So thank you. This was lovely. And for those listening, I really hope that you got something out of this, because there's a lot to get out of it. So Ashley, for those for those listeners, so it's Friday, I get all tongue tied when it's been a long week. For those listeners listening that want to get to know you, that want to learn from you, may want to connect with you, talk shop, talk roller derby, how can they find you?
I am pretty active on LinkedIn. So Ashley Coghill with a C. It's I think if you do the LinkedIn with the URL, it's just a Coghill afterwards. So easy to find. And I would love to connect. I'm nowhere near my 30K limit. So anybody can connect with me. It's fine. And I'll talk to people. I talk to people all the time on there. So
I love it. Well, Ashley, my fellow TNSer, fellow human, thank you. I really appreciate you. This was lovely. I'm sure it was hard to talk about. You showed up, you shared, and this will help people. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate you leaning in with me. This was another just incredible episode of Tales from the Field. Ashley, thank you for trusting me. Really appreciate you. Until next time, everybody. You've been in sales. I've been in sales. And in sales, it's a journey where we all have stumbled. And it is in these moments where we grow the most. So for anybody listening, I hope that this was helpful. This has been a Sales Feed production. If you're not familiar with all the fun things that they have up their sleeve, check out salesfeedmedia.com.